This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It is time for more Law Light. It's PJ and Travis Holtry.
What's up?
We are here at 530 Frederick Street at the high-rise white brick edifice. That, my friend, is politically correct.
Right. I'll be honest, I kind of like that better than White Palace.
Yeah?
There's something about Palace that it has a very princess kind of a feel to it.
Doesn't it? No princesses. All right, so we're here at the high-rise white edifice located at 530 Frederick Street, recording yet another classic edition of
56
Law Light. So, some disturbing news about the increasing rate of COVID here in our state, man. It is just like it's like back in numbers way higher than we were ever accustomed to.
Yeah.
Seems like there's some closures coming our way.
Now, have you actually heard talk or seen people's, like, any officials?
No, I apparently today the governor said that he's going to have some announcements tomorrow. So,
and announcements means probably closures.
Yeah, some type of restriction. And I don't know what those will be. There's no question that the numbers today that we have statewide, I think 200 and something people that are in ICU. We have 60 something that are on ventilators.
Right.
And so, when you take those numbers and like today was 1,300, over 1,300 new cases. I know in Davis County we had like 19. But, when we get the information, then we'll get it out to everybody as to how we're going to, we're ready. We're prepared. We've done this before.
Right.
But we'll get the word out to all of our clients and potential clients on how they can find us, and we'll continue on business as usual and rock this the same way we did before. Okay?
Well, we weathered through it.
Right.
We did really well, I think, during. I want to say, I wanted to say first wave, but the weird thing is, and we've had this conversation before because we've said, after this, is there going to be a second wave? But it doesn't even feel. It feels just like a consistent wave.
Yeah,
it never really felt like it got high enough to where it then tapered back down.
Right.
It just felt like it.
I think an ebb and flow. Like there's just
been
a few peaks, a few valleys, but
it's just been pretty
and I think
constant.
If you look back at the numbers, there was a significant drop there was a significant flattening of the curve when we went into basic total isolation.
Right.
And then once the gates started opening, it's kind of gone up and down, but the last 3 weeks have just been steady increase.
Yeah.
So.
It's like I told you, like I was paying attention to the numbers, and then it just seemed like every day it was. It's the same with politics. Like I was
beat up by it.
It's just like it's to the point now where it just feels like the politicians aren't even in it to tell you how they plan to fix the problems. They're just in it to like beat the crap out of each other.
Right.
And you're just watching politics was like our last episode.
Well, that's exactly what I told you. Is that you can find some relief from that. You find a little bit of an escape from it if you take it and imagine them fist fighting.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, we go down the entire, and by the way, of all our previous 55 episodes, as far as talk that it has generated, the last episode where we did Street Fight Showdown version 1, right, has generated a lot of talk.
Yeah, when I came in Monday morning, that was like all everybody was talking about.
It is funny how they some of them agreed wholeheartedly. Like Bart Darrell was like, Bart said, I agree wholeheartedly with what PJ said.
Oh, really?
I am too diplomatic to want to engage in a street fight and be dirty in it. And
right.
He'd be like, I'd try to negotiate my way out of it. And that negotiation, Bart Darrell, will not get you free from the clutches of Iron Fist Holtry. I will, if we are in a street fight, I will punch you. I will fight you, man.
You will bite a woman's face, as it turns out.
Yeah,
You'll go.
Oh yes.
Well, I came to work Monday, and it's like I walked in the door, and Kara immediately walked up to me and was like, well, at least I know how you feel about me.
Right.
I know how you really feel about me.
She was a little betrayed that you thought she was wily.
She said her and her mom had to look that up.
Look up the word
in the
wily.
dictionary, what wily meant.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody's remarks and thoughts on it.
Well, Tyler came in and he comes up the stairs, he'll come in the side door of our office, up the stairs. And he did not go straight into the kitchen to make his coffee. He didn't go right toward his office. He turns left and comes into my office and says, I want my belt. I want my title belt. And I said, you wait until we have a rematch.
Yeah.
So we will at the right time. PJ. We will bring back Office Brawl 2. Okay.
Oh, we have to.
We will maybe do a bracket, seeding of the brackets to where we get some classic matchups, and then we advance 4 people that would just be all out bedlam. Okay.
Yeah.
Now
we could do an in-office bet.
Yeah, we could.
Like with what you do with basketball.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put that bad boy up on the shelf, and we're gonna let it age a while.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because by the next time we could put Kendall and Devin, our 2 runners, in it.
Right.
We could put Chris Seyfried, who is on injured reserve. He wasn't able to participate in. But I'm telling you, bring Chris into the mix when he's healthy. Chris is a big boy, and Chris can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, in case Chris listens to this, I wasn't laughing at the fact that you were.
Yeah,
in
we're
the hospital.
not, Chris.
That's
But yeah, we have to add Chris into it, and there may be others by that time. So we're gonna let that marinate. We're gonna let it age, and we're gonna pull it off the shelf at an opportune time for another podcast. Okay.
You know what we could do? We've done one for the law side. We could do one for land title.
The problem is I don't know all of their names.
Well, we could just do the ones we know.
Well, no. Hey, we got a cheat sheet. We've got the phone.
Oh, there you see. There you go.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So,
and then the parts where we're like,
don't know them.
what's their name? I'll just edit that out. No one will never know.
But now I have come up with an idea that I want you to start working on. Okay.
All right.
We are going to do today. We are not far. We're about a month from Thanksgiving. Okay.
Oh man.
And then after Thanksgiving, what we're going to do is I want you to come up with a bracket. We're going to do another bracket.
Okay.
But this one is a PJ special assignment. Okay.
Oh jeez.
I want you to put together 16 of the best Christmas movies.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, okay.
All right, now you'll put together the 16 of the best Christmas movies, and then we will go through and discuss. We'll do, for example, Rudolph the Red-Nosed and Frosty the Snowman. Okay, and they go head to head, and then you and I discuss who advances as being the better of the two.
Okay,
and we're going to get it down to the best Christmas movie for the holidays.
Right.
Okay. All right. We're going to do that. And then what we're going to do is whichever one wins, we're going to go put it up. We're going to rig it up to put it on our projector and our big screen that we have for trial. And we're going to play it one day down in the conference room. And we're going to have a Christmas, like a little get together on a Friday afternoon during the holidays.
Okay.
We'll get to just chill out, eat popcorn, have a beer, whatever they want to do. That will be the movie we watch, whichever one we end up with. Is that a deal?
Sounds good to me.
So now, between now and Thanksgiving, you have chance, and if it's too bad your new movie's not going to be out. The 13 Slaves Till Christmas.
Well, it'll be done. It just won't be released.
Okay. Well, but how can we measure it against anything else if it hasn't been watched?
A Christmas Story is far more superior.
Right. Okay. So, it needs to be one, we need to get the best 16, because once we have the 16 on the bracket, and what we may want to do is one podcast between now and is reveal the 16. Okay. And then on that day, the first podcast after Thanksgiving, podcast after Thanksgiving, we will announce the bracket, and we'll go through it.
Right.
Okay. All right. So
now does the decision of what makes the list is solely dependent on me.
Right, but you're going to reveal that, and it's up for a little discussion. What we'll do is you'll reveal it sometime between now and Thanksgiving.
Okay.
On our podcast.
All right.
And when you do, I may say, well, you left out this movie. And you left out that movie, and like, how could you leave those out? And we'll debate, we'll look at your list, okay? And then we'll see if we get any feedback from the staff, if there need to be any that come off your list.
Because there may be a few that some people are like, wait, I don't know if
right. And we need to get but by the time the bracket comes out, there's no arguing that those are the 16 finalists.
Right.
Okay. And then we take those 16 and we reveal a winner.
Well, I've already got one that's going to be an interesting,
a good bracket idea. What do you think? Right?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay,
I've already started.
See, with street brawling and things like that, that kind of tapped into my thing of sports and all the but now a movie bracket and we center it around the holidays, and have. I think it's right up your alley, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I might even try to, because I've already started thinking pairing up specific movies,
right,
that would
First
work
thing I would
against
do is come
one
up
another.
with a list, and then kind of look and see, and we can bracket it, but we got to come up with just the 16 movies that have made the cut.
Why 16?
Because it's an even number that gets reduced down to 8, gets reduced down to 4, gets reduced down to 2, and then 1.
This will show you how stupid I am when it comes to the brackets that you normally do with sports. It starts with 16 teams.
No, the NCAA starts with 64.
Oh wow!
Then it goes to 32. Then it goes to 16, which is called the Sweet 16.
Right.
Then it goes to the 8, which is called the Elite 8. Then it goes to the Final 4. Then it goes to the championship.
All right. Yeah, because I'm glad you went with 16 and not 64, because I would probably have to pull some very obscure Christmas movies.
None of it, somebody just outside the window got a speeding ticket.
Oops.
So, all right. So that's our goal. And
all right.
Also in between now and then, we got to put together, our list for invites for podcast
interviews.
Guests.
Yep.
Okay. Turning to the one thing I wanted to get to today and discuss just briefly. I was asked the other day, how do we make the decision of what medical malpractice cases to take? And I thought that was a good question. Yeah. I was actually discussing it with a retired physician who had indicated, he and I were talking, and he had indicated that he had made it through his medical career without being named in a lawsuit. And I thought that was admirable, and I would hope that that would be the goal of most healthcare providers, whether they be professional nurses, nurse practitioners,
right,
whatever the medical discipline is. That would hey, I want to do my job so well that it doesn't ever come under question. But as we know, it's a practice, and sometimes you're careless, sometimes you overlook details, and then as a result, bad things happen.
Right.
But he asked me a very what I thought to be honest question, and it's something that you and I haven't discussed on the podcast that I think it's worth delving into for a few minutes. Here is something that's very important to understand about medical malpractice cases. Is that unfortunately, usually when there is a mistake, it is a bad result. Okay, right. Because we're dealing with, it's not like if I am a mechanic and I forget to tighten down all the lug nuts somebody's driving down the road and their tire flies off and their car bottoms out, 9 times out of 10, probably no injury related to that. It's just a bad situation, right?
Right.
But when if you are negligent in your care or treatment of a patient, ultimately, because their health is at issue in the first place, they're there for a reason, needing something done or something watched or something tested.
Yeah.
If that's not done right, then the outcome a lot of times is sad. It's horrific. It's catastrophic. And so because of that, medical malpractice cases are hotly contested. They are defended well. On some of the best attorneys that I know are members of the defense bar who defends medical malpractice cases. And I have spoken in seminars where I quote a lot of times people who I've been against because they're good lawyers. Okay.
Right.
And so I think you can attest to the fact that we handle fewer medical malpractice cases than we do other cases.
Yeah.
Because just by sheer numbers, okay? And the reason for that is because medical malpractice cases cost so much money, all right? They are expert intensive. In other words, I can't just say, oh, I think the doctor messed up, ask my client, well, what do you think the doctor did wrong? And then that fly. There has to be expert testimony, okay?
Right.
So it would be kind of like, when if you're trying to make a determination of whether or not a movie is a good movie, all right, you bring in filmmakers, you bring in people that know the art, and they say this is a classic, this is an instant classic, this has all the elements of, right? I mean, you've talked to me about the kinds of things we need to be looking for to make good presentations. It's the same way. I can't just say, well, a doctor messed up. I got to prove it. And so I have to get other doctors to critique what this doctor did. And put yourself in that. When you go to critique other filmmakers,
it falls under that whole diplomacy thing that we talked about, because it's like, I mean, when I first started getting around other creatives and they would ask me like, hey, what do you think? And there were things about it that I didn't like or just wasn't good. I would kind of go, well, yeah. And I would come up with, excuses, or I would be, really hard pressed to find things I liked about it, but I wasn't completely honest with them. To be now, though, over a decade later, I'm usually very open and honest to the point where it has hurt some feelings and stuff like that. But I can see where it would be in the medical field. It would probably be a bit different. I don't have anything riding on the line, though.
Right.
And that's the thing.
Well, that's the point too, is to add another layer to this. This expert's getting paid to render their opinion. Right.
And that's where politics comes into play.
That's right. And it is so, not to drift too far afield here, but so when we get a potential medical malpractice case, to answer what this doctor was like, how do we figure out which cases we want to take? The way the process works is a person will call the office, okay, and they will say, hey, I think that maybe a doctor malpracticed on me, At which point it doesn't go through the general intake process. It goes to a special person to do, our medical legal assistant with a medical background does the intake, so that we can automatically begin to screen, to pull information that would be helpful in an attorney looking at it and saying, is this one we should even meet with? Okay. So
right.
It right from the get-go, it's treated differently. There is a medical legal intake, as opposed to a general case intake, okay? That information is then presented to a lawyer, okay? And the lawyer will look at it, and the lawyer will probably have 8 to 10 to 15 questions just based on hey, this is what they called me and said, and we send it back with the medical legal assistant, and that medical legal assistant says, hey, I ran this information by Mr. Holtree, and he had some additional questions, and he would like for me to ask you those questions. So we get the additional information. Sometimes it's clarification on dates and times. Sometimes it's, well, when was the first diagnostic film done that could have revealed this? You just have, depending on what kind of medicine we're talking about, but there's always questions I want to know just from the intake. And so we send them back to get that, and then it comes back. At that point, we make a determination of whether to meet with the person. And right now at our office, we probably get 10 to 20 medical malpractice calls a week. Okay?
God, that's scary.
Yeah, we get 10 to 20 calls a week. Of those 10 to 20 calls, we probably call them back with more questions because they've at least piqued our curiosity. Probably 3 to 4 out of those 15 or 20. So I would say, on average, probably 10 to 20% of cases get called back to get more information. Of those cases that now become the subset, we may meet with 1 or 2 a month, okay?
Right.
For a potential case. Well, now when we meet with them, we try to do some research ahead of time about the area. There's a lot of information available online about particular medical issues. For example, we get a type of case that we get asked to look at a lot are ladies who have had a hysterectomy performed by the robotic, the machine that does hysterectomies. Yeah. Okay, so this. In those cases, there is a higher incident of bladder nicks, okay, a nick to the bladder. All right, so we get a lot of those, and there's certain things you look for: what kind of damage to the bladder, how where that damage was, and things like that you can look at. So we get a case in, we will ask other questions when we meet with the client. We then question them even further, and we eyeball them, and we see how did this affect them. And one of the things we're always looking at is what are the damages in this case? Because a medical malpractice case takes sometimes, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 to pursue from beginning to end, and so there has to be some likely outcome that would justify that risk. Okay. Then the next phase is if you decide that you're going to at least investigate the case, you obtain that person's medical records. And then you get those medical records, and you have your medical legal assistant do a cursory review or summary of the records so that you know what you're looking at. And then those records get sent to an expert witness who has agreed to look at them. The expert witnesses will charge, I've seen it anywhere from $200 an hour up through $1,000 an hour for their time, depending on what their specialty is, to review medical records. Okay.
Now, how many of these cases? Now, first of all, that's, I've been here 5 years. I didn't even realize that we got 15 to 20 calls a week. I didn't know that. So that's astounding to me. Like I said, scary. And I know that ranges everything from like having a cavity filled the wrong way all the way up to heart surgery, so it's a broad range.
But medical negligence cases, 10 to 20 calls a week.
Right. So how many of these cases would you say that we get to the point where we start getting medical records, and then you go through the medical records and it's like, I don't know, there's really nothing here?
Okay. I would say I can give you the exact numbers for our law firm for the last 2 years. In 2019, all right, we obtained medical records on 14 cases. All right.
Okay.
We filed 4.
Oh, okay.
In 2020, we've gotten medical records so far on 12 cases, and we have filed 3. So we're filing about 25%, 1 out of every 4 that we're seeing the records on. Okay?
Right.
And, our operation is not as big as some on medical malpractice. There's some attorneys, that's all they do. Our operation is bigger than some. We currently on the books have, I think we have 9 open medical malpractice cases at the time. Okay, that's a pretty hefty book of malpractice cases. But when you take that and you look at if you take, let's say we have 9 on the books right now, and let's say just over the year, if you take 20 a week, 20 calls, or let's just take 10 calls a week times 52 weeks, that's 520 that we had a pool of.
Right.
So when you have 520 that you have a pool of and you have 9 filed, that shows you how selective we are. That shows you how deep our due diligence goes before filing that.
Right.
You know, so, and one of the reasons I want to share this is what's one of the things that we hear our legislators and politicians say needs to be done? Frivolous lawsuits.
Lawsuits, yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm sure you've heard it.
Oh, yeah.
Way too many.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about this before.
Right. Okay, so in this office, I can tell you that my job is to recognize a frivolous lawsuit before our staff spends any time on it. Because any time that our staff and our attorneys spend on a case that on the surface has no merit is a waste of productivity, right? I mean,
Right.
because there's no way for us to earn a living on cases we don't take.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So, and I'm speaking for the attorneys that I know that handle medical malpractice cases and handle them properly. Okay. I'm telling you, the last thing in the world they want to do is file a frivolous lawsuit.
Right.
Because they have better things to do than burn $80,000 to $120,000. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this whole idea that medical malpractice is, needs to be governed better because there's frivolous lawsuits, and it's a fallacy. It is a fallacy. Now, the ones that are successful and cost a physician's insurance company millions of dollars because of the mistake, yes, it's going to cause malpractice premiums to go up. All right. But if you look at the number, and I don't want to misquote it, so I'm not going to state it, but the actual verdicts in Kentucky for medical malpractice, a significant, and I am not talking, a significant portion of those verdicts are defense verdicts. They are for the defendant physician. Okay.
Right. And
so the number of medical malpractice cases being filed, and I have used these statistics, and again, it's been a month or two since I looked at them, so I'm not going to, but the number of cases being filed for medical malpractice cases in Kentucky has gone down significantly. And the reason for that is they're so difficult, they're hard to prove, they're expensive.
Okay, that was actually going to be my next question. Now,
Yes.
these cases that you're talking about, where it's the verdict is for the doctor, are those cases that they've gone in front of a jury?
Absolutely, they go in front of a jury. The jury awards either that there was no malpractice. In other words, you didn't prove a violation of the standard of care. Okay? So a doctor, let's just say a doctor that's taking out your tonsils. That's an ear, nose, and throat doctor, okay? Ear, nose, and throat surgeon. That doctor, when they go to take your tonsils out, must do so in the same manner that a reasonably prudent physician would under similar circumstances. So let's say that they fail to take a step that is tonsil removal 101, okay? It's like you never do the remove tonsils until you've done this, okay? And let's say the physician skips that step and it causes a bad outcome. That was a violation of the standard of care. The standard would say every reasonable ear, nose, and throat doctor that does a tonsillectomy will do A, B, and C. You did not do A, and therefore you breached the standard, okay? So back to your question. There's two ways to lose a malpractice case. Number one, you may not be able to prove a violation of the standard of care. The jury could hear the evidence and say, we don't think there was a violation of standard of care. We don't think they breached their duty to this patient.
Right.
But there's another way to lose them. And the other way to lose them is you can prove the breach of the standard of care, but fail to prove that it caused any bad outcome. A perfect example of that is a cancer diagnosis case, okay? A failure to diagnose cancer. A doctor may fail to diagnose cancer when it was obvious, okay? But it gets caught 6 weeks later by another doctor, all right? Is that malpractice that Dr. A didn't catch it? Probably so. There was signs, symptoms, testing, whatever, lab results, diagnostic studies that show there was cancer. But if the doctor misses it and then Dr. B catches it 6 weeks later, what difference did Dr. A's failure to diagnose make in the long run? You probably would have a hard time proving that. And
Right.
if you did try to prove, so the jury could come back in that case and say, well, yeah, there was malpractice. Dr. A should have caught it. But what was the result? What did you prove it caused? Well, it caused 6 weeks delay and giving the guy.
Right. Yeah. Because immediately what went through my head was, well, that's the whole purpose of getting a second opinion, right? So
Right.
Dr. A
Right. And
didn't
so-
catch it. Dr. B did, and
right.
that's why you get a second opinion.
Right.
So I could see
so
where
there's a way you can win a malpractice case and lose it at the same time. The jury can come back and say, yeah, we believe from the evidence that the doctor breached their duty or violated the standard of care of what a reasonably prudent, competent physician would under similar circumstances. However, we do not believe you met your burden of proof. The evidence does not prove that it made any difference, that it caused an injury. You
Yeah,
know?
right.
And so that's a second way to lose them. So I guess in short, what I want our listeners to hear is this, is that medical malpractice cases are extraordinarily difficult.
sounds like it.
The attorney has to educate himself, herself on the medicine and has to understand the medicine, and that is an expensive process and a time-consuming process. Sometimes there are cases that I turn away because the person will call me and they are 2 weeks away from their statute of limitations, and they just don't understand, well, I still have time. Well, I don't have time to get all your medical records, send them to the 2 different medical specialists that I need to send them to for review, and get an opinion back. So there's a lot that goes into it, and my hat's off to 99% of the attorneys that I know that do this work. Okay, it is very difficult. It is it's high risk. Okay, and that's why a lot of guys do it. High risk, high reward. I'm not going to say that we don't get good fees if we're successful. I will say that. I will say they're earned, and they are, because there are no cases more difficult to present and do it the right way than medical malpractice. So, I had been asked that question this week, and I thought, you know what, that is a perfect topic for a podcast, coming off of one where we were a lot of fun and stuff. I thought it would be a good one to talk about.
Right. Well, here's a follow-up question. So, as with car wreck cases, personal injury cases, a lot of them, I would say a majority of them, get settled as opposed to going to, like a trial.
Right.
Is that the same thing with medical malpractice? Is there do a lot of them get settled before they go to a jury? Or
not as many settle. There's a couple of reasons why, and I'll hit on these real quick. Number one, a lot of the reasons they don't settle is because a lot of times they set themselves up as, we're either going to win a lot or we're going to lose.
Right.
And there's not this middle ground that the case could fall into.
Yeah, because settling is almost a way of admitting there was malpractice on the doctor's side.
Right, and even though they don't have to admit fault, but yes, before they pay significant amount. So a lot of times malpractice cases line themselves up as if the jury's either going to find that there was malpractice that made in a result or not. And if they don't, there's zero value. If they do, then you've got high value. Okay,
right.
And so they set themselves up to be difficult to settle for that reason. The other reason that they are difficult to settle is because a lot of insurance policies that insure against malpractice, doctors have malpractice insurance. A lot of insurance policies require the doctor to approve the settlement. In other words, let's take it to a car wreck. You've heard me talk about this. The decision makers in a car wreck case are insurance adjusters who are sitting in an office who get all this information either from an attorney if the case is in a lawsuit or from me, the plaintiff's lawyer, if it's before a lawsuit. And they're making the decision on whether to settle or not, and they don't have to have the consent of their insured. Okay? Right. In professional negligence cases, all right, there are some policies that require the physician to sign off on it, to say, yes, I approve that settlement. And here's why. A lot of them won't, because in their states, now not in Kentucky, but in their states where they practice, it gets reported that there was a medical negligence case that was resolved. And so what happens is they say, no, I'm not going to agree to a settlement. So that
because it creates a stigma.
Right. That it keeps it from happening a lot of times. Also, some medical malpractice cases have high deductibles. Okay, so a doctor could be on the hook for the first $250,000 of it, or a doctor's group could be on the hook for it. So to answer you, can a malpractice case settle before trial? Absolutely, all cases can settle before trial. In my personal experience, I would say a significant amount of my case, less percentage-wise, settle before a trial, okay?
Right.
And that's another reason fewer people take them, because they know it's going to be a long haul, lots of money invested in it, and that it's probably going to go to a jury trial. With, and we've talked about with the advent of mediation and it becoming mandatory in a lot of jurisdictions, we're seeing more of them settle, but there's still those barriers that keep them from settling.
Right. Something you just said a second ago that's eye-opening is that there is medical malpractice insurance to protect them from medical malpractice cases. Now, and the first thing I thought of after I thought of that was, well, it's kind of the same thing as you going and getting a driver's license. You were saying, I have learned and I'm going to follow the rules and I'm not going to be negligent behind the wheel of the car. And that's what this license is allowing me to do. It's giving me that privilege to drive, and I know that I'm going to protect my life and the lives of others on the road.
Right.
However, to me, there's still a huge difference. And of course, so we have insurance in case someone is negligent behind the wheel of a car. Big difference to me, though, is that that's transportation, and that's not the same as someone going, I'm going to have someone under my care and I'm going to cut their heart out and replace it with another heart. But just in case I screw up, I'm going to pay some premiums over here to protect me in the event that
Right. Well, I will say
happens.
that you probably, and I can see why that would be eye-opening and understand your position on that.
Right.
But let me say this.
Or is it to protect you from frivolous lawsuits?
You probably want there to be malpractice coverage, because if there wasn't, and a doctor or a hospital or a medical group was responsible for paying out of their own assets, then they would become even more entrenched in their position.
Right.
And
And
also,
then you run it, then it becomes
also
like a UIM or UM.
recoverability. That's right. I mean, what do they have?
Okay, I'll
what do
give
they
you that.
have? While you would hope that most physicians are comfortable as far as finances are concerned, that's not true. A lot of them have a ton of medical debt school debt, education, and they make bad choices with their money. And so you could run into a physician that if he didn't have insurance or she didn't have insurance, then the recoverability in that case would be challenged. Okay, so it is a blessing.
I'll give you that.
And one thing you need to understand, you may not, now that I've opened your eyes about this, is I have a malpractice policy. If I make a mistake in a case, I miss a statute of limitations, I fail to get a witness interviewed that would have been, something,
Right.
that would have been below the standard of care of what would be reasonable. Then if I get sued, by a past client for legal malpractice, I have policy that covers that. It's like an errors and omissions type policy. So most professionals, dentists have malpractice insurance, doctors have malpractice insurance, accountants have errors and omissions. Insurance agents have errors and omissions coverage. So we live, whether we like it or not, we live in a system that is dependent upon insurance.
Right. I guess that's a good thing then,
Yeah.
really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I need to find the insurance policy that protects me in the event that I forget my wedding anniversary or something. I'm sure it's out there. Husband malpractice.
Husband malpractice. We all need that. So. All right, man. Well, we've gone over a little. Hope this was helpful to our listeners.
Yeah, it was really
Educational.
interesting.
I know I did a bulk of the talking, so we'll get a topic next time that allows you to do most of the talking. But until next time, this has been Travis and PJ. Law Light, brought to you by the fellers Foreman, Watson, Holtree at the high-rise white brick edifice.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. 'Cause one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!